cybersecurity practice for impact makers, which is based in Richmond. We are an IT consulting company, and we provide a number of different services: project management, IT architecture, cybersecurity, and organizational change management. So today, really, I want to focus mostly on B Corps and B Corp certification process, but I'll touch on both nonprofits and then benefits corporations. And you know, if you guys want to eat, it's not going to bother me. So feel free, relax. If you have questions, by all means. It's nicer if I'm not the one doing all the talking. So this is not our slide at Impact Makers. This is a common benefit and B Corp slide. So this is basically the overview of what I'm going to talk about: differentiation between a B Corp and a benefits corporation, and we'll touch on S Corp and C Corp just to kind of put it in context of the variety of different LLCs, corporate structures that are available. What's a company's impact, the B Corp certification process, and then a little bit about impact makers. That's who I work for, and some resources that you can access. Any questions? You guys have like a rough day? I'm tired.
The second slide.
Okay, so B Corp benefit corporation. So there's certified B Corp, and then there's a benefits corporation, and then there's LLC, and there's C Corp, and there's S Corp. A lot of people get certified B Corps and benefits corporations and nonprofits confused. So benefits corporations and B Corps are for-profit organizations by and large. They could be nonprofit, but the designation is for a for-profit company. A benefit corporation is a designation where it's a stock designation, much like the S Corp, which is a lot like the LLC, a limited liability corporation, in which the revenues and the profit flow through to the owners, and they're not taxed at the corporate structure. So, like a C Corp is your most common stock company, public company out there, and a lot of people like to indicate that there's double taxation, because the corporation is taxed, and then as profits flow through to the owners via the shares, they're taxed again. So with your LLCs and your S Corps, that revenue, that profit flows through to the owners, they're only taxed once. Now, why would you go one way versus the other way? There's a lot of different legal ramifications. What's the difference between an S Corp and an LLC? They're really similar. LLCs provide a little bit more flexibility in terms of ownership, in terms of the number of owners, in terms of revenue. But then on the other hand, they have, in particular places, limitations around the life of the company and passing it on. So there are a lot of different characteristics that differentiate what you want to do specifically around C Corp, S Corp, LLC, and then nonprofit's a whole different organism, right? Any questions around that? Nonprofit, obviously, if you make a profit, if your revenue is in excess of your expenses, that extra profit or that extra revenue needs to go back into the organization and for the services that you might provide. Okay? Now, certified B Corp is something else altogether. Both a benefits corporation and a certified B Corp have, as a part of their mission, doing good for society. So, a benefits corporation, as a part of their mission, it includes a positive impact on society, their workers, the community, the environment. Now, the difference between that and a certified B Corp is there's a process that you need to go through to get certified as a B Corp by B Labs, which is a nonprofit that administers that program. So this is recognized in 33 different states. So one of the things you want to realize about a B Corp is it is not a tax designation. Okay, so that's, one of the key differences. Any questions on any of that stuff?
So by tax designation, that they are not taxed or that
They are taxed, but there's no specific regulations in the IRS that relate to or recognize the certification of a B Corp.
So if you decide to donate to a B corporation, would the company be able to write that off or not?
If you donate to a B Corp, so you wouldn't per se donate to a B Corp because they're actually for-profit organizations,
Okay.
right? So you might invest in a B Corp, but that would be an investment in the company. And one of the things I'll do as we move into the latter part of the presentation is talk about impact makers and some of the specifics around our corporate structure, which is really very unique in terms of the structure of the organization. So those are great questions. Any other questions?
What's an example of a B Corp?
Of a B Corp, other than impact makers? Patagonia, Paul Newman, salad dressing. There's roughly 2,400 of those, and I'll get into it a little bit more later. Other questions? So you asked this.
Oh, there you go.
So there's 2,400 B Corps globally, and roughly 24, I think that number might actually be a little higher, in Virginia. So these are all, and the idea is, and we'll get into this a little bit more. So B Corp certification, it's a socially aware certification. They like to say it's what fair trade is to coffee. Are you guys familiar with fair trade? Anybody not familiar with fair trade? So basically fair trade, and it's not just in coffee. There's a number of different organizations that utilize a fair trade approach. And what that means is, so you might have a third world nation or a lesser developed nation where people are making a product and then they sell it to corporations in the U.S. and they make a huge amount of profit, and little or none of that profit goes back to the people that actually produce the good or the service. So fair trade, what that attempts to do, and I think in large part succeeds, I think there's 10,000 villages is another example, is they ensure that that profit goes back to the community where the goods were created, and making sure that the people that created them get a fair shake. Instead of like, maybe some large industrial firm coming in and taking the raw materials, making a huge profit, and then leaving the people in the community where that came from in dire straits, whether it be for water or environmental degradation. Fair trade tries to ensure that that's not going to happen and they see the benefit as well. Doesn't mean that the company that sells the good doesn't make a profit. It's just thinking in the profits in a more holistic sense and making sure that everybody gets a reasonable compensation for their involvement. So LEEDs is another example. Basically environmental designs, green buildings that use renewable energies or building structures that save energy. So certified B Corp is another example of that. But there's another layer of validation that goes through the process. So any other questions on this? So what's a company impact? So this shows 5 different areas of impact, but I like to look at it as a 3-legged stool. You have your customers, your community, and then your employees. And then the community breaks out, into environment and governance structure, another like environment, like energy usage. But these are the areas that are focused on from a B Corp certification standpoint. And I mean, and how many have you all heard or familiar at all with like socially aware enterprises?
Are those businesses who try to appeal to the public by taking a side on a issue?
Well, I mean, it could be that, or it could be a little more broad. I mean, like for example, you can invest in stocks that are targeted towards organizations that have demonstrated interest in the community. And this is totally separate from a benefits corp or a B Corp or a certified B Corp. It's basically organizations that think about the environment, think about their community, think about their employees, and try to, prioritize all those things to really, back to the first slide, doing good while doing good business. But there's a whole stock area where you can invest in. And a lot of people will think, okay, so if an organization thinks about their products in a holistic sense, then in the long term they're going to be more profitable. So there's sense. Any questions on any of these things? So this is a breakout, and really these are the areas that are incorporated into the certification of a B Corp. So what differentiates a benefits corp, which is a socially aware organization that in their mission statement includes specifically addressing doing good to the community, and a B Corp. So a B Corp is certified by B Labs, which is a nonprofit organization based in Pennsylvania that goes through looking at these areas and calculating a score for the extent to which they're actually a part of their operations and a part of their governance structure. So the ones in red are more or less optional. I say more or less because as B Labs engages an organization for certification, there's no cookie cutter questionnaire that you can get from them. It's actually tailored to your organization based on conversations that you have with them as a part of the process. So, what is a B impact assessment? That's the certification process that's used to validate an organization that wants to become a certified B Corp. So these are some of the example questions. You look at the governance of the organization and the extent to which in the governance documents there's an indication of interest in the community and the environment and their employees and how that ties to performance metrics of the organization. The employees. Are they paid fairly at or above market reference point for that particular role? Are they treated well? So, a lot of that's going to be in the eyes of the employees, right? Environment. Do you have energy efficient facilities? Now, our previous location, we just moved. And I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Scott's Addition in Richmond. We were in a revamped old building with wooden floors and big windows, and it was not energy efficient at all. It was like either freezing cold or really hot, or and so that was one of the areas where we looked to improve when we moved into a new building. But in general, you're looking at the environment, and as you can see, it's a big part of the certification process. So you go through, you develop a series of questions in conjunction with B Labs, and then they rate you in terms of how you are performing as it relates to those metrics. Any questions on this?
So do B corporations have to get like recertified every 2 years or whatever?
They do. There's a 2-year recertification process. So you get certified, and there's some amount of effort associated with it. It's not. It's a bit of a an investment. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard. How many people have heard of Patagonia? So they are one of the early adopters of the benefits, and then they got certified in 2012 for the B Corp, certified B Corp, and they're a really interesting company. If you ever get a chance, you should take a look at the documentary that was done on Patagonia. It's called 180 Degrees South, and I think it's like Conquering the Useless. And it's a story about the founding of the company. But what happened and how it took place was a couple of the founders got in a van and they drove all the way from the U.S. down to Patagonia, to Tierra del Fuego. And they got there and they were so taken by how gorgeous the land was down there in Patagonia that they felt that they had to protect it. And so they established Patagonia as a means to fund that park and to fund what has become really a worldwide, well-known, incredibly gorgeous park. And so they're really, I think, a great example of a certified B Corp because their dedication to the community and their employees is really easy to point to. It's exemplary of what it means to be a company that's not just looking to make a profit, but it's also looking to benefit society. Now, one of the things that I think has come up, both in terms of nonprofits and B Corps, benefits corporation, and especially in terms of nonprofits, is this idea that a strong management structure with an eye towards efficient operations that will meet for a nonprofit the revenue needs is not important. Or in a certified B Corp. Well, I can tell you that, especially in the nonprofit sector, one of the things we have to do as a part of our working for impact makers is do a certain amount of pro bono work for charities within our community. And there is an extraordinary focus on the expenses and efficient use of resources. And certainly in a lot of instances, there's more scrutiny of where those expenses go and the operational efficiencies that are required than would be in, for example, a private for-profit organization. Or even, a C Corp or an S Corp that's under a certain amount of revenue. Because your C Corps don't have to register with the SEC until I think it's $10 million in revenue. And so that outside scrutiny is much lower. Certainly a limited liability corporation has much lower scrutiny than you probably would see in a nonprofit. And of course, there's no one-size-fits-all in terms of what that means. But the point is, most of the nonprofits that I've worked with have a real focus on efficiency and demonstrating to, a lot of times they have a board, demonstrating to their board or their investors that they have a sound management structure. So the idea that there's some less need for structured and well-organized operations is absolutely not true. And certainly within B Corp, they're looking through all the specifics as it relates to the operations and the efficiency of the employees. Is there any questions around that? Okay, so you go through and you rate all these different things, and then you have to get a score of 80 or more in a total of 200 to get certified.
Okay, so when you said the B Corps get assessed like every 2 years and make sure that they are a B Corp, so what if they fail the assessment? Are they considered to be something else, or do they have to retake it and maintain their status as a B Corp?
So if you you don't score high enough to be certified as a certified B Corp, you'll be given a remediation period to address those things. If you don't address them in that amount of time, then you lose your certification. You still can be in business, you still can do good to the community, you can still operate and make a profit, or not make a profit, as the case may be. But so basically you lose your certification as a certified B Corp. That's a good question. Other questions? So, B Corp certification. So why, okay, so like I said, you got to go through a pretty significant process to get certified as a B Corp. Why would you want to do that? Okay, so it's a verifiable, demonstrated commitment to social responsibility. I mean, organizations can say all day long, we really, want to do right by our community or environmentally or to our employees. But how do you know? Even a lot of these organizations out, that are the green stocks that I talk about, as an area of investment, if you have a portfolio and manage it in that way, how do you know? Even that, presumably, if you're going through some organization and they're giving it a seal of approval. But you follow the money. For all you know, the guy who's saying that they're a green corporation is getting money from them to say that. And maybe it's not a check to them. It's like, hey, the more people that buy this stock, the more of a transaction fee I get, more of a commission. So what the Certified B Corp does, it says, hey, we're a nonprofit, independent organization, the B Labs, that go in and specifically verify that this organization meets the criteria. It also provides a view into your organizations and a baseline ability to say, hey, how do I improve my organization to become more efficient? If you're energy efficient, well, you're going to save money, right? If you have happy employees, you're going to have less turnover, and that's going to also be useful. So it's attracting and retaining top talent. Structured networks, structured opportunities for networking. So it provides events where you can come in, and as a matter of fact, Impact Makers is hosting an event, I think on the 12th, and y'all are welcome to attend, where a number of the different B Corps come together and talk about, it could be, I think next week we're talking about, I can't remember, but it's different events that but at a minimum, you have the ability to meet your colleagues, meet other colleagues, find out about B Corps, and get help with particular areas. They also provide discounts for services within their what they provide. Any questions on that? And finally, it also provides an opportunity to raise capital, within the B Corp community. So this is kind of differentiate from the pretenders. So it's verifiable, it's demonstrated. Provides you the ability to look at your organizations in another way. Attract and retain talent. Opportunities for networking. Yeah, there's a part of the B Corp community is they call it the Beehive. And so it's like a bunch of organizations come in. And they're actually pretty fun events. So if you guys want to come up to Richmond for the one next week, feel free. So they provide discounts, and there are at times discounts outside the community as well. So how does a company get certified? I went through this quite a bit. We'll get to a lot more detail from this website. Meet the performance requirements. You got to get 80 out of 200. You may want to restructure your and then you go through and get the actual seal of approval. So is there any questions, any more questions on that? Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about impact makers. So we're a B Corp, but we're also unique in that we're a for-profit organization, and this is separate from the whole B Corp certification process. But we donate all of our profits to a couple different local charities within the communities that we work in. So we're for-profit, but we donate all of our profits to communities in charities in the community. So those charities include the Community Foundation, the Virginia Capital, Community Capital, Values-Based Performance Assessment. I'm not sure what that is. So 100% of our profits go to charities over the lifetime of the company, and then we do everything we can to really have a low impact on the environment. So this was our most recent score is 171 out of 2. So these are some of the resources that you can get. You can go to the B Corp website. You're welcome to contact me. Like I said, we have a social coming up. I think it's next Thursday at 6 at our office in Scotts Addition in Richmond. So how long does it take? 2 to 6 months to do the certification. They say 3 hours to complete the assessment, but that can go up or down depending on the level of complexity in your organization. A lot of the 3 to 6 months is getting things scheduled and then reviewing things with the B labs. And they work with you to get you through the process, so it's not like you're out there by yourself. Setting up a meeting and going through it with B labs, and then 2 weeks to get it official. Again, there are a lot of varieties determined depending on the complexity and the size of your organization and the revenues. So any questions on any of these things? And this is the certification fees based on. So it goes from as low as $500 up to $50,000 for the fees. So what do you think? Does it make sense to get certified?
Well, I mean, why not get certified?
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, there is a cost associated with it.
That's true.
And your organization may not meet the criteria in terms of either their pay for their employees, or they're addressing the environmental considerations or the governance structure. It's a good question.
Can you tell us a little bit about what Impact Makers does as an organization?
Sure. So as I said earlier, we're an IT consulting firm. So we have I think 5 lines of business. Program management, IT strategy, which includes architecture, organizational change management in terms of transformation. And we have a user experience group, and basically what that does is it works with organizations that are developing a website or a customer service process to help them really understand specifically how they can improve their interactions with their customers. We also have a digital line that produces websites, mobile apps, and then there's my area, which is it's really information security and risk management, but by any other name would be cyber. So we're about 100 employees, primarily based in Richmond, but we have services in Northern Virginia and Chicago and New York, and we're looking to move into the Raleigh area. We focus on we have a pretty large footprint in the healthcare, payer, and provider, significant footprint in the public sector in terms of both state and federal government, and then commercially within finance and some of the other commercial areas. Any questions about impact makers?
Yeah, do you actually work with, what types of companies? So would new companies, new candidates to work with your company large? Give us a sense of
So we work with, I guess it's fine. So Bon Secours is a Centera, or a couple of the healthcare firms. A whole variety of the state organizations, Department of Social Services, Division of Motor Vehicles, Department of Health, Supreme Court of Virginia, probably 20, 25 different of the state federal organizations, FDA, Harris Williams, Carto, quite a few other organizations there. So it's a cross section. Healthcare, like I said, Bon Secours, Centera, some of the other organizations, and then finance, Harris Williams. It kind of gives it.
Why wouldn't the company become a nonprofit if it gives all this profit?
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
That's
A lot of legal stuff, I'm assuming.
It's really a different structure in terms of trying, going into the community to specifically identify organizations to give your profit to. I think a lot of the people that have come into impact makers, and that's a great question. Probably certainly our founders could talk about it forever, but come to the organization because they want to give back, but they don't want to go and take what would be a below market salary, and they don't necessarily want to have to do it as an add-on to their job. So we founded Impact Makers with the idea that, yeah, we're market-based, competitive in terms of our service delivery and in terms of compensation for the people that work for us, but to facilitate the ability of these mission-aligned individuals to give to the community while still pursuing their career or specifics within that. That's what Impact Makers provides. So why would we do that instead of a nonprofit? I think it actually provides the structure that really allows you to see specifically where your efforts go, and continue to be competitive within the services area.
I can understand that.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you on sort of where you see the B Corp certification going. So, for example, companies that are Strome certified often, get a higher priority on a list for procurement, for example. So it's in their best interest to do that. Is there anything like that happening with B Corp certification yet, where there's preference given to companies who are certified?
Okay, well, so to start with the SWAM, right? The SWAM idea. Of course, the thing to keep in mind as it relates to that is that's primarily the public sector.
Right.
Right. So what that means is on government procurements, whether it be state, local, or federal, there's some differential review of SWAMs, which are small business, basically. I think it's like small women-owned and minority-owned businesses. And in many cases, there'll actually be a set-aside for a certain amount of the contract has to go to these small businesses. So I currently don't see any movement within the public sector. I've been on a few committees where we've talked about the definition of small business and looking at the SWAM certification, but I've I haven't encountered any movement towards that. I mean, there is. There are at the federal level, there are some contracts that incorporate provisions around demonstrating environmental awareness. So there are some things out there in terms of B Corp certification specifically. I mean, I think that what really tends to result is a differentiator, all things being equal. So in other words, hey, you know, your prices are comparable, your performance, your past history is comparable, but these guys are B Corp certified, and especially if it is a government organization where presumably the people that work there have some vested interest in the community, which is why they're working, you know, in the public sector. So I do, and have seen where it has been a differentiator and a door opener. So that's a good question. I don't know, maybe we should push it.
I know, that's next.
That's a good idea. I think it certainly in the current political or governmental environment, it might be a pretty hard push. Any other questions?
So you pay for the certification. Do you outright say that you're a B Corp when you're marketing your business? How do you see value outside of just knowing, you know, in your heart that you're a B Corp?
Yeah, we do. Typically, and of course, you know, it depends on who you're marketing to. You know, if you're going to go and market to the DoD or one of those organizations that's contracted to the DoD, I used to work for Northrop Grumman. And so, you know, we've done a number of sales calls back to Northrop NG. And, you know, I know I had every, you know, positive experience all the thing, but we didn't emphasize it. You know, we might say, hey, you know, we're socially conscious, but that's not where their focus is. Now, on the other hand, Department of Social Services, sure, absolutely. You know, Department of Environmental Quality or an organization, Bon Secours. You know, they have a charitable mission as part of, you know, a charitable giving as part of the mission. So, but yes, we definitely do it, and it's somewhere in any one of our decks that we go out with, there will be the B Corp certification. But the B Corp certification will be on there. So yeah, we definitely do. And for impact makers, the fact that we donate all of our profits to charity over the life of the company, and in fact we donated the ownership of the company. We went with an initial public offering, so now we're a stock corporation. But the Charitable Foundation and Virginia Capital are charitable foundations that own impact makers. So not only do we donate all of our profits over the life of the company, we in fact gave the company to the community. Any other questions? Well, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so you said the whole, like, y'all weren't a nonprofit company thing. So if y'all were to become a nonprofit company, you're like, say, hypothetical, y'all currently make $10, like a person makes $10, but if you became a nonprofit, that would probably cut that like in half or something. The person will make $5, but you'll be able to donate more to the people, like more charity work. So you wouldn't receive as much taxes or whatever. You'll be able to dedicate more funds to helping people. But with the way y'all are, you're still able to make $10 while still helping the people. Not as much, but it's like a happy medium where you're able to make a good amount of money while still donating money.
Well, I'm not sure that in all cases it follows that, and maybe by and large there's a slightly lower, and this is not my area of expertise, so please, you know, there's a slightly lower pay scale in the nonprofit, maybe by and large. I don't know necessarily that's true. I do know that I have worked with a number of the executives of some of the larger nonprofits, Red Cross, United Way, and those guys get paid really well. You know, so I mean, and you know, in certain fields, you know, like cybersecurity, you're not going to get people. that can do the work if you don't pay. So, you know, I suppose it's possible that the pay scale is significantly different. I don't know that that is true in all the cases. And the thing is, I think it's part and parcel to the skill set that you bring to the job that you're working. I mean, you know, if you're doing something because you love to do it, you know, a lot of times people are willing to accept less. You know, and I don't know necessarily social work. You know, they're there not because of money, but because of the fulfillment that they get in doing the work. And so they're willing to accept less. But, you know, if you're in the IT consulting area, you know, sure, you may like it. I like cybersecurity, all that, you know. But you know, it's like, you know, I'm not here because of, yes, I like the idea of the altruistic nature of the fact that I can give back as part of the organization, but I'm doing the job to get paid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can kind of like add to the comment for what you said a minute ago when you answered my question. I think it kind of gives like the company or the people within the company like kind of a competitive, you know, drive. You know, some people go to work, you know, they work hard, things like that, do a little bit extra after work, maybe so they can get that raise or that promotion or that next, or be a leader of that next project, which in turn makes more money for the company, and then they can give more to charity. So it kind of gives, kind of like when you hear billionaires talk about they sign on to the giving pledge, they'll give half of their money away when they die. It still kind of gives them the ability to keep working hard, making a lot of money, doing what they love to do, and still the fruits of their labor can still benefit, you know, the charities even more. Kind of like without giving, you know, everything to a charity, you kind of do your thing and do it well, and then the fruits of your labor will just benefit your charity even more.
Yeah, I think that really articulates it well. Right on.
Maybe we'll just close. If you could tell us one piece of advice. Let's say we have student companies that are really interested in becoming certified benefit corporations. What advice would you give them for the process, and what pieces of information do you think they really need to know in order to be successful?
Well, I think the first thing to do is the first thing to do is go to this website, right? And then, you know, that'll really help you drill into the details around what's required, who your peers would be. Because the first question you got to ask yourself, and it goes back to why get certified, right? Is that something you really want to do? And what are the benefits? So, I mean, a couple of things I would say is first, you know, go to the website, but then, hey, come out to one of the B Corp socials and talk to some of the colleagues that you would have as part of the Beehive community. You know, and then you could talk to them and say, you know, what was the process like for you? You know, and how did it go? And, you know, look to find an organization that had a similar size and similar, you know, as similar products and services as you might. So first you can find out, you know, what is the process about, and then who are some people that did it, and, you know, how valuable is it going to be for me to be a part of this networking community? Because some services or product may not get as much out of it as other ones. So, I mean, and to me, that is a big part of the value is to meet with those other companies and use that as an opportunity to understand how they did, but also meet potential customers, you know, and understand how they're working their businesses. So that's what I would do. Is first go there, then you know, look through the information and go to a B Corp social and so you can meet some of the other organizations and see how it was for them.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure to follow @Strome EC to tune in next time.